You know this is El Man. You're listening to It Came From the Radio, and we're going to do a very interesting interview. There's an app, the Mystery of the Mary Rose app, and it immerses players in the sights and sounds and even smells of life aboard the ship almost 500 years ago that sunk. It was Henry VIII's favorite ship, and it sunk in 1545. So we are here with the creator, or one of the main creators, Charlotte Mikkelborg. Hello.
Hi. Yeah, so it's Time Detectives, The Mystery of the Mary Rose. Exactly. That's the name of the app.
Great. So why did you create this app?
Well, coming out when I was coming into COVID, I mean, not the disease myself, but as in that period that we lived through, I had been doing a lot of sort of bigger budget VR experiences. And it was kind of that realization that maybe those budgets weren't going to be around for a little while with everything that was going on, but wanting to still give people the opportunity to have really immersive experiences. So we started thinking around like developing an augmented reality app, so something like Pokemon Go or Harry Potter Wizards Unite, something like that, but much more realistic experience. So where we introduce like photorealistic characters, we put like real people in your environment, but also like not limit ourselves to just the audio visual, but actually introduce like haptic and scent elements as well to like further immerse you in the story. So we just felt like, okay, for that by creating that AR experience, we can work with slightly lower budgets, but we can still give you this experience that's really exciting and fully immersive. So that was the idea behind it.
So this experience can be on the app, that you won't have the smells on the app, but you'll have the smells in person at the Portsmouth. Am I saying it right? Portsmouth Museum. In United Kingdom, far away from New York. I'm in New York right now.
Yeah. So no, you can access, so you can download the Time Detectives app, either App Store or Play Store, depending on what you're on. You can play the game entirely remotely. You're right, of course, that does not include the scent element. But you can play, obviously, the rest of the game. Like, you don't miss out on anything else. You do miss out on the scent. And we deliver the scent through these kind of little mobile backpacks that just emanate this kind of dry scent at certain key points in the game. So it's not like a gimmicky, like 4D cinema, spray it at you kind of thing. It's much more subtle. And the reason we like to play with scent, or I like specifically to play with scent, is that it's the only one of our senses that speaks to the limbic part of our brains, or speaks directly to that part of our brain anyway, which is the memory forming part. So when you create good, if you use scent right, you're quite literally creating more memorable experiences. So that was kind of the aim with this and other multi-sensory stuff we're doing.
That was my next question. I'm like, why smells? So, because if you want them to remember, you can play a song. A lot of times I had a teacher who I think was the head of Visa or American Express in American University, was my business teacher. And every class, he played the same song at the beginning, same song at the end. But you know what he should have done? Maybe he should have scented the room a certain way too. And then we never forget him,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the other senses, they do all reach that same memory forming part of the brain. They just don't reach it as quickly or as directly. So yeah, scent is by far the best way to like reach somebody's memory. So yeah, so if you are by chance, and if the audience are visiting the UK, you can get down to Portsmouth and see the real ship that was brought up out of the ocean, the 500-year-old ship that was brought up out of the ocean. It's about actually pretty much half a ship, like half of it was destroyed, and the rest is there. And then you can follow this kind of follow the game as more of a trail-based thing around that site with the scent pack. But otherwise, yeah, you can play it remotely without.
So Henry VIII, it's his favorite ship, apparently. It sunk in 1545. Last question, I think, about smell. What kind of smells were there? What kind of smells do we think were there? What kind of smells are visitors going to experience?
Yeah, so, well, there were 500 men, no women on board this ship, a combination of like soldiers and sailors. So clearly there have been some pretty unpleasant smells like BO, which we have not focused on.
No women, you said? None? No women?
No women, no.
No women. Oh.
No.
Wow.
So, but it was a more diverse audience than a more diverse crew than they expected when they started doing the analysis of the bones and such. But diverse from an ethnic perspective and not from a sexual perspective. So yeah, no women. But where was I going? You asked me about the smells. Yes.
Oh, what kind of smells? Yeah.
So, for example, at one point in the game, you're eavesdropping on a conversation that's happening over the backgammon table. Like one of the ways they had to relax was kind of playing dice and backgammon. So you're kind of listening in on the conversation there, and there is the smell of beer kind of coming from your backpack.
I thought you were going to say BO, and I'm like, okay.
No, there might have been that in the room too, but we left that out. No, but the smell of beer, because actually the crew would drink about 14 pints of beer a day. They drank it instead of water as a way of like getting rid of the bacteria in the water. They would instead drink beer. So
yeah, I was just listening to something else about, alcohol being a multiple time per day thing, but I didn't know beer could help with bacteria. I thought beer maybe could breed bacteria. I didn't know it could kill it.
Yeah, no, the brewing process kills bacteria, in fact. And so, yeah, back in the good old days, they drank it instead of water. So yeah, you've got the beer smell, you've got the smell of gunpowder. When you fire the guns, at a certain point in the game, you're discovering a plot to sabotage, to explode some of the guns. In fact, one of the crew had his ears cut off for exactly that. Anyway, you get the opportunity to interact with the game by firing the gun, and when that happens, it releases the smell of gunpowder. So all of the scents that release, their reaction to your interactivity with the game. They're not, which is another nice thing about it. It is personalized. I mean, the scents don't personalize, they don't change, but the moment in which they're kind of received by you, let's say, changes. And you get the smell of the ocean air when you kind of come on up to the upper deck. And there's a couple more that I'm forgetting right now.
Fresh ocean air. I hope not swampy air, because that could be very unpleasant. At low tide. I hope it's high tide.
They were on the ocean. Yeah, they were on the ocean. But then we've got the smell of molten tar. They use like a tar-like substance to like block leaks small leaks in the ship's hold. So at a certain point, you're down in the really dark hold with one of the characters, and you smell the tar he's using to fix a leak. And then there's a fifth one. It's going to come back to me, but right now I can't think what it is.
Well, sometimes when I really have to pee, I just plug myself with tar, and then no, I'm kidding. I don't know if my radio host is going to like that one. I don't know.
Cutting it out for sure.
Well, on the vein of not really dirty jokes, but I guess kind of. All right. So the press read that Henry VIII had 5.5 wives. How do you have a half a wife? I mean, I would say a half of a spouse is best, less time consuming. I'm all about that. But like, what is 5.5 wives? Do you know what that means?
I'm guessing he died. He died halfway through like the 6th marriage. So maybe like he only lived half of her life, maybe.
Oh, interesting. So I guess according to whoever wrote this press release, like if you don't live long enough, the marriage is like a half or something. I don't know. I just thought it was very interesting.
I have no idea. I mean, he cut off a few heads there, so it could be that they were only counting, the ones who kept the heads as full marriages. I'm not sure.
Did you say they kept the heads? Is that what you said?
I said he cut off 2 of their heads.
Oh.
So whether they're like reducing the number based on body parts, I can't tell you, but that's possible.
Okay. So now going more back to the ship and away from silliness, maybe. So the research says that it's been about 500 years, and there's been 27,831 dives between 1971 to 1982, and no one knows why the Mary Rose sank. They can't figure it out.
Yeah, there's a lot of evidence, obviously, but some of it is contradictory. There's different theories, and they're all kind of supported by some evidence. I think ultimately, and obviously I'm not the chief historian of the Mary Rose, and probably they're the best person to ask, but from all the research and work we did, my understanding is that it was probably like a bit of a combination of factors. But that's kind of the fun of the game, is we want to turn you into that detective who gets the opportunity to like research what all the evidence is and kind of work out what you think happened. So it's quite nice that it is a genuine mystery and it's not something that actually has already been solved,
Well, I'm going to say if one of his wives was trying to off him, good job, because we didn't find you out and you're not going to prison. I mean, you're dead. It's 500 years, but I don't know. That's where my first went.
Yeah, sadly, sadly Henry VIII was not on the ship. So she didn't manage, if that was her goal. He was actually on it the night before, so maybe her timing was just a little off. It's also possible, but he was on it the night before, and then he came off. He was going to watch the battle against the French from the castle on the coast, and instead he watched like his favorite warship sink before it got into battle.
Maybe it was insurance fraud. I don't think they had insurance back in 1545, did they?
I think you might be onto something. I actually met someone recently whose specific area of specialty is like insurance fraud from like ancient history.
Oh, really?
Is that a thing?
I would love to know when the first insurance fraud was proven. That's an interesting idea for your next AR game, next augmented reality insurance fraud.
How far back does it go? How far back does it really go?
Or I'm really into teeth. I have my floss right here. I was flossing on a film set. My dad's a dentist. What if we did, how did you get your cavities? An augmented reality game of the teeth, or following someone around eating the sugar and watching them fall asleep and forgetting to brush their teeth. Anyway.
You're just full of ideas. I mean, I don't even need to make up anymore. I'm just going to give you a call.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. People consult me with that. So back to you. So the trailer, I could have sworn the trailer said that it felt like when you're in the app, because there was a girl, a very cute little girl in the trailer holding the app. And it's like when you're playing the game, it feels like you're in the Mary Rose and it feels like you're syncing with it. Wow, that's just what I wanted. No, I'm not. I'm just joking. I'm just dissing the game. But I wonder if you've had any people, it must be a scary experience to feel like you're syncing. Has anyone commented on that experience?
Yeah, so you don't actually sync in the game. You kind of travel back in time to like a few hours before the syncing, and you're kind of investigating like what's happening on board, like what's going on, what does the captain know, what do the guys beneath deck know, like you're listening on conversations, you're uncovering like physical clues and things. And then at the final, like at the end of the game, you do witness the syncing, but you're clearly not on it when you're witnessing it. So yeah, I don't think there is quite that.
Did you think maybe it'd be too scary to have people feel like they're sinking?
I guess it depends how you do it. I mean, when you walk into the Mary Rose Museum, there is actually a kind of a projection mapped experience of the sinking, but they haven't made it very, it's not realistic in the sense that there aren't a lot of people screaming, it's not really that scary. But so I guess it just depends how you do it. But if you made it really realistic, for sure, I mean, that would be petrifying. So especially on these ships where, I mean, the bottom decks were just like pitch black, and the only way up was through these really narrow ladders through these tiny holes. I mean, if you're claustrophobic, it's like a person's worst nightmare, basically.
Well, I watched the video of the Titanic sinking, and I think I actually started crying. I got like a visceral experience. But also someone told me, a psychic said that I was a rich lady who died on the Titanic. I don't know, but I do know I saw the movie and I hated it. And I said, what is
you
this?
did?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I believe, but it's a funny theory that maybe, I died on that. Maybe she was wrong and I died on the Mary Rose. But okay, so you're a director.
But then you were a man. If that happened.
I am listed as a man, and my stage name, my name, Jennifer Elise Feldman, does break down to L man, the man. So I do identify as a man, jokingly.
I think there's a message there.
There's a message there, right? I was died on the Mary Rose, and here we go. So you're a director. You have a lot of directing experience. I just directed a sketch on Friday. It was a comedy sketch, and I say, do this and put the light here and do this. What type of directing did you have to do with this, creating this game?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, I think with a game, it is actually a bit more about the creative side is more about planning the user experience. It's kind of a bit of UX design, really, more than it is conventional directing. And then it's about, obviously, in this case, I wrote the script. I do write a lot of scripts, not all my scripts, but quite a few. So I wrote it. And then it's more just about kind of overseeing the crafting of it. So in a way, it's kind of a cross between director, producer, because I'm kind of keeping an eye on the creation of the 3D assets and, just kind of over all of that. So just kind of creatively like moving it along, not doing all of that work. So I'm not a 3D artist and I'm not a developer. So I didn't program it. I had great people doing that for me. But yeah, so I guess the role is definitely different if you're making a game versus if you're directing film, which I do as well. But yeah, this was not so much that. There was a bit of conventional directing because the two key characters, which I don't know if you've seen the game, but the photorealistic kind of 3D volumetrically captured characters that you see, the captain and Henry, they were we shot them in a studio against a green screen with just a different kind of camera setup that can recreate them as 3D elements in the game. So that was more conventional studio directing, I would say. But yeah,
so a lot of people
combo.
Say the world's going to be taken over by virtual reality, and there's pros and cons to that. I guess I'd want to know your thoughts on what are some of the pros and cons of virtual reality coming into the PORNographic world, the tutorial. This is more of a tutorial for children or adults to learn because interactive, increases the learning capacity usually. Are there any pros and cons that flip into your mind when you're creating this augmented reality experiences?
So many. I mean, I think that it's super exciting, like the world of virtual reality, also augmented reality, but is exciting because obviously you can create, like the possibilities are limitless. I mean, much like I guess CG in films, you can create any world you want to create, which is pretty exciting, which means you can take people on some pretty wild rides with it. But I think its kind of main value is probably also its main downfall, that ultimately you don't want lunatics taking people on. People on those far rides. There's certain people we wouldn't want making VR, or certainly most of us wouldn't want making VR. And I also think things like horror is petrifying, because it's fully around you, you genuinely, at home, at least you can feel the wall and the sofa behind you, but you take that away in VR and it's, pretty scary.
I didn't think of horror, because I'm in horror movies and I didn't think of making them 3D.
Yeah, I've done a couple. They are petrifying. I mean, just because the safety net is kind of gone.
Right.
But the benefit of something like this is that you can genuinely, like, for people who maybe find history just the dullest thing they've ever come across or been taught in school or whatever, actually being able to take people there and recreate that. I mean, that's an exciting story, whichever way you look at it. Like, it's not history anymore, it's something you're living, right? And it's probably a lot more interesting than your day-to-day life. So I mean, I think that's awesome that we can use that as a learning tool, not just for this kind of thing, but I mean, really for anything. I mean, they're using it in medicine a ton. Like, I think the opportunities are kind of endless. Like, if you can imagine, I don't know, the world's most skilled heart surgeon now able to teach people all over the globe, right, rather than just in a limited hospital in wherever he or she happens to be based. So yeah, I think there's a lot of cool things, too many to list for sure on your show.
Yeah, way better than the chalk on the chalkboard, but you have to go, so we're gonna wrap it up. So any final thoughts for society and It Came From the Radio?
Check out the game. I mean, just a last minute plug. Do check out the game. We'd love to hear your feedback. So,
and where can we find you in the game? Website, social media?
Detectives, App Store, Play Store. I'm C Mikkelborg, if you can spell it, on Twitter or Insta. And yeah, you find my company as well, Picture Productions, through my own profiles quite easily.
So beautiful. So on that note, reality, virtual reality, augmented reality might be taken over. You've been listening to It Came From the Radio with L-Man and Charlotte Mikkelborg. Back to you, Mark. See you later. Ciao. And that's a wrap.